Let's go. So Brent, how are you?
I'm good.
What are you doing?
Well, you ask me, or I get asked all the time, and then you ask me, what's a typical day for me like in the office? So let's show people what it's like. It's pretty straightforward.
Perfect.
One of the first things I have to do when I get up is I have to respond to emails. I have a email here right now, which is a ticket confirmation that I got from the airlines to confirm my flight to Atlanta. I'm leaving for Atlanta to speak the American Bar Association's Capital Trial Division, to speak, the Georgia Bar Association's Capital Trial Division in a couple weeks. Oh no, next week, 1 week from now. And I want to make sure that my reservations are good, and I want to make sure that my schedule is right, so I'm not missing something. Because one of the biggest problems that we have logistically is you think you know what day you're leaving and you're wrong, and you think you know where you're going and you're wrong. I want to check my layovers, so that's one of the things I'll be doing today, making sure I have that. I go from here, just from Sitka to Seattle, Seattle to Las Vegas. Oh, and I have a layover of about 7 hours in Chicago, so I'll be stopping in to see Paul Cialino on Monday.
On Seattle?
Yeah, no, not in Seattle, in Chicago. I have
Chicago.
a layover in Chicago. So that's one of the things I'll be doing, is to make sure I have the correct amount of time for that. So I'm doing that. Then I have another email right after that. It's from a colleague on a case that I'm working involving the assassination of a district attorney in Denver, Colorado. And he sent me some notes on a report that I wrote. And he's sent me some notes saying, here are some things that are helpful. Here are some things I'd like you to address, things like that. Here's some spelling errors, word drops. I'm famous for dropping words, like the word not.
That changed a lot.
That changed everything. So I have to go over that and make sure it's part of the editing process. You want to make sure that you actually are correct with your with your reports, that they actually say what you mean them to say. So he's the client, he's the attorney. The actual client in that case is the widow of the victim, and she is now a judge. So the attorney representing her has asked me to do this forensic examination, crime reconstruction, crime scene analysis of his murder, to assist the police with their investigation. I've done that, so now we're just going over it. That's the next thing I'm doing.
So what's the typical way they contact you?
Well, this is particularly typical because this case, this client is a client I worked with on another case.
Okay.
Remember back a few years ago, I worked on the Dark Knight Rises case, the civil part of that. He was one of the attorneys on that team, and they like my work on that case, so they've actually referred me out to other cases. And that's typically how you get additional casework, is that by word of mouth. Either they see your publications and they like them, or they see your work on another case and they want you to do the same kind of examination or a similar examination on the case they've got right in front of them. And I'll have an attorney who will contact me and say, I've got 2 cases going right now. I want to get you to work on one now. When that one's done, we're going to immediately go into another one, and we'll talk about both. So that's a pretty common involvement for me. So this is typical. I worked with him on another case. He wanted me to work on a new one. So the next one is a email from a forensic psychologist colleague of mine in Canada who is going to be attending the criminal profiling, crime scene analysis, and tortures diploma in Chicago. And he's asking about seating and timing and logistics and that kind of stuff. So I'll respond to that as well. After that, we have another one. This is interesting. Come around here and show the screen. This is from the military website, the WAWF email, Procurement Integrated Enterprise Environment User Role Deactivation Notice. Every month or every 6 weeks or something like that, you have to go into this procurement website and change the password and security measures on your account information and I'll show you, just come around here, hold on here. We'll go right to it. WAWF, where's it at? Should be right here. For the military, anyone who's got a military contract has to have a website where you are absolutely verified, identified, your business is verified, it's a legitimate thing. It just goes through all these security checks, all these identification validations, and every 6 weeks they change the login. And if you don't go in and re-up it, you have to go through that whole security check process again. And that brings us to the next thing, which is this. You can see right here, this is a package that I received yesterday, Monday, from Fort Stewart, Georgia. I'm working a double homicide case for the JAG Corps there. And let's see, go into it. I think it's this. No, this is they send things the same way every time. The discovery material comes the same way every time. This is a SIM card. The SIM card is 128 gigabytes, and they send it with instructions. I won't show you the password, but the instructions, this blank, this has the written password on it. It's called a BitLocker drive encryption software. And what you do is, you open up your BitLocker software, you plug it into your drive, you plug it into your your SIM card reader, you plug it into your computer, and you open the BitLocker encryption software and you open the encryption password. They are not allowed to, the federal government, is not allowed to use unencrypted files, drives, devices, anything. So everything I get from the government has to be completely BitLocked, encoded, high security, rah, rah, rah. Also, as part of my work, just a really interesting aside, I have to sign agreements to keep and maintain a drug-free workplace. And by that, they mean illegal drugs. So I can't be, if I have medication that's for a thing, that's obviously not a problem. Alcohol is obviously not a problem. But like drugs that are federally illegal.
Okay.
Like illegal street drugs. You know, illegal marijuana, illegal oxycodone, illegally obtained steroids, illegally obtained meth or heroin. I can't have that in my home. I can't use that material, and I sign affidavits assuring that that's true. So in my home and office environment. So that's part of it. The next thing is, so I'll do that today, probably. The next thing is, I have a confirmation. Oh, I have here. This is for. Here we go. Right here. Come around here. You can take a look at this. This is the 2-day training seminar I'm talking about in Georgia. This is for the State Bar of Georgia in downtown Atlanta. It's giving me the location of the actual training that I'll be giving and some notes on the things they'd like me to cover from Becky Kincaid, who's the chief office administrator for the Georgia Capitol Defender. Now, people don't know what that means. The Capitol Defender, what's that? Capital Trial Division is the murder one division, the death penalty division.
Yeah.
Capital case is a death penalty case. Just a polite way of saying death penalty. So it's the attorneys who operate at the highest level of prosecution. If you're not death qualified, you can't do a death penalty case. So that's this division that I'm working with. So she's confirming my.
Is this an event? There's going to be another speakers.
There's going to be about 400 attorneys from all over the country. No, excuse me, from all over Georgia, and then there will be speakers from all over the world, and I'm one of them.
That's
good.
good.
I think there's like 4 of us. So 4 speakers from all over the world. Probably they won't be from the rest of the world. I know a couple of them, and they're not. They're just from the United States. But so the next thing I have is I have a Google alert set up on my computer.
What is a Google alert?
Well, I'll show you. Come around and take a look at this. It's actually pretty interesting. A Google alert is a keyword alert. So I have keyword. The keyword in this case is crime lab, or a phrase. Okay. So it will give me every single internet article that's published, or any journal article, anything that's been uploaded, any web page that has the word crime lab in it that's new. And so
it can be news, it can be articles.
It can be news, articles. It can be from blogs. It can be anything.
Okay.
So this basically, it gives you what's funny is you'll get it twice. You'll get one day you'll get it as the regional. There'll be a regional newspaper, like a local town paper, will run an article,
and then
the next day it'll get picked up by nationwide news services.
Of course, if that is important enough.
Right. So if it's important enough, it'll get picked up. That's why I do the Google alert, because that way, any case that involves the forensic science testimony, crime lab testimony, a criminal profiler, I have Google alert set up for a lot of different terms. So every day I get notified about reporting on those issues. So I know those cases, I know those instances, those reported instances, and those announcements, those press releases, the day they happen, not the next day. And that's actually a pretty useful tool to stay about a day ahead of the news.
How much time do you spend invested in reading of these alerts?
At least an hour a day, sometimes 2.
Okay.
Just because I do it once in the morning, and then when I wind down in the evening, I do it again. just to relax, because it helps me know what my colleagues are doing. It helps me know what crime labs are having crisis issues. It lets me know what cases have suffered legal challenges or legal issues. It lets me know what appeals have been successful. There are a lot of times they'll get profilers kicked out of court, that kind of stuff. It's very interesting. And then, let's see, we have another case. This is a colleague of mine, a client. Here, take a look at this. This is a colleague who, and his name is Michael Brown. He's in Connecticut, and he's doing basically what he normally. You can go back on. He's doing basically what he always does, which is, or not always does, which he typically does, is he says, let's meet and have a conversation. Both of us get way too busy. I don't return his call. He doesn't return my call. The trial is way out. We have all these things we need to do, and other cases are getting in the way. So this is one of his emails saying, oh man, I've got this amended petition. Can you please read it? I need to talk to you about it, but I don't have time. So let's set a time, and then hopefully we'll do it. So I get emails from clients in cases that are ongoing, where we're doing, because it's not immediately necessary, we're missing each other by sometimes weeks.
Yeah, happens to me.
Anyway, but you're required to do, they send you reading and you're required to do it. Then we have to talk about what that means and what kind of information they need. And that's a pretty typical day for me. When I'm in the office, I am responding to emails, I'm taking phone calls. I just found out that for example, working on the Mary Ferguson case here in Sitka, Alaska, we just found out within the last 2 hours that the chief of police, the chief of police has submitted his resignation. He says in his resignation letter how great things are and how great it's been to work for the Sitka Police Department, and now he's resigning. He doesn't say why he's resigning, but he does remind us that he's only been the chief for 2.5 years. So that's a problem. I don't know. What does that mean? I guess we're going to find out. So you get these, you have phone calls, you have text conversations with clients and colleagues, and every day, every case you work on moves forward a few inches or a few feet or a few miles, depending on how close you are to having to testify. So that's pretty typical. And as you can see, we have this set up today because you and I are going to be recording some more conversations that we're having. Anyway, the point is, it's pretty typical.
How much time, for how long you've been doing this routine?
20 years.
20 years. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the technology is getting better in terms of Google, in terms of...
The Google has been around a while, obviously, but when I first started out, there was no internet.
Exactly.
There was just phone calls. I would travel an hour a day.
No TVs, right?
Nothing.
The phone was just invented, and it was a big thing.
It was a huge thing. You had to wind and you had to charge the phone. It was very difficult.
Those was the days, yeah.
I started working cases in 1996, and when I moved to California to work cases formally, to actually take on participating at a adjunct to a crime lab as their consultant, as an outside consultant on cases, it was very interesting because I would travel sometimes an hour, 45 minutes a day just to drive to a colleague's house to have a 45 or half an hour minute meeting with them and then drive back.
Yeah.
You spent a lot of time in your car. You spent a lot of time on the phone. You would have to drive to go get physical copies of crime scene photos. You'd have to drive to go get physical copies of transcripts. You'd have to drive to go take photographs because the file sizes were too big to send in email, or the quality was so low it didn't even matter. But I remember doing crime scene photographs in my Mavica camera remember it just had a floppy disk as the insert, and you could take like 16 pictures. This is so good. But as the technology gets better, you're able to move more information around better, and you're able to communicate more effectively and efficiently. So the tools have gotten better, but the techniques are the same.
Exactly.
The science has not changed. The attention to detail has not changed. And I'm reviewing cases now that occurred in the 90s and in 2000 that have gone up on appeal. Cases that I've helped either solidify or overturn. Investigations where they finally got a suspect arrested, or they finally have an idea that they need help with, or something like that. So as technology has moved forward, yes, but those are not the cases that we're not always working on cases that happen today. Very often it takes a while for them to get to my desk.
So what do you think, you've been seeing another professionals work for these years. What do you think is the difference between actually getting work and getting advanced in the career of not doing it?
Being honest and showing up. Those are the two main things. You've got to be honest all the time. We talked about this before.
Yeah.
There's a requirement of being honest and having integrity. And if you don't do that, everybody knows, everybody finds out fast. But also, if you say you're going to be at a place at a time, be there. If you say you're going to get a report done by a time and you set a deadline, you got to meet it. If you say you can testify at this date at this location, show up, be presentable, be honest, do your job. It's very difficult for people to do that.
Yes.
Most people can't, in fact. I mean, almost, I've seen very few. And they want to, they say they want to. But what they're really doing is faking it. They're pretending to look like someone who does that on TV, but in reality, they can't get it. They can't get it together enough to show up on time for what they're supposed to do because they're so busy about what they look like, or they've got their own personal drama going on, and it's nothing to do with the case.
Well, thanks, Brent.
No problem. And like I said, two things: showing up, being honest.